There's a moment that happens for most people somewhere in their 20s or 30s. A quiet shift, not dramatic, not announced. It just arrives one day in the middle of an ordinary moment. You're dealing with something hard, a decision you do not know how to make, a situation you do not know how to handle, a version of life that nobody prepared you for. And you think about your parents at your age. And for the first time, instead of picturing them as the composed, certain adults they seemed to be when you were growing up, you picture them as people, real people, your age, with the same fears and the same confusion and the same absence of a manual that you have right now. And something cracks open, because the adults who seemed to have all the answers when you were 8 or 12 or 16, they did not have the answers. They were just people, doing their best, figuring it out as they went, exactly like you are right now. And that realization, when it finally lands, changes something permanently. I want to talk about what that realization actually means, not just as an emotional moment, but as a practical shift in how you see yourself and your life. Because I think most people have this moment and feel it, and then do not fully unpack what it is telling them. They feel the tenderness of it, the softening toward parents they may have been frustrated with or hurt by, the compassion that comes from seeing them as human rather than as authority. But they do not always follow the thought all the way to where it leads, which is this: if they were figuring it out as they went, if the people who seemed most certain and most in control of their world were actually improvising, just like you are, then the idea that you are supposed to have it figured out by now is completely false. The standard you have been holding yourself to, the expectation of clarity and certainty and direction that you assumed was available to everyone who is functioning as a proper adult, that standard was never real. It was a projection. The adults around you when you were young were not more certain than you are now. They just had more practice at looking certain. And you absorbed their performance of adulthood as evidence that adulthood came with answers. It does not. It comes with better questions, at best. Think about your parents at whatever age you are right now. Really think about it. What were they dealing with? What decisions were they navigating? What fears did they have that they never showed you? What were they uncertain about that they never admitted? Because they were trying to protect you or because they were trying to convince themselves. Most of us grew up with a version of our parents that was curated for our consumption. The version that was trying to be stable and safe and certain. Because that is what parents instinctively do for their children. They perform a confidence they do not always feel because they love you and they do not want you to be afraid. And so you grew up with the impression that the adults around you had access to a level of certainty about life that you have been trying to find ever since. And the absence of that certainty in your own life has felt like failure, like you're somehow not adult enough yet, not together enough, not ready enough, when the truth is the certainty was never there, not in them, not in anyone. This is one of the most quietly liberating things I have ever understood about being human, and I think it deserves to be said plainly. Nobody had it figured out. Your parents did not. Their parents did not. The teachers and the leaders and the authority figures did not. The people who presented themselves to you throughout your life as knowing what they were doing, they were all making their best guess. They were using the information they had at the time. Some of those guesses were right, some were wrong. Some of the things that were passed down to you as wisdom were actually just fear that had been in the family long enough. It started looking like common sense. Some of the limits you absorbed about what was possible for someone like you were not truth. They were the limits of the people who raised you, passed down as reality because they did not know they were limits. They thought they were just telling you how things are. And this is where the compassion for your parents and responsibility meet. Understanding that they were figuring it out does not mean everything they passed down to you was right. It means it was their fear. Some of it was their unprocessed experience. Some of it was the ceiling of their own environment, mistaken for the ceiling of the world. Your job is to sort through what they gave you, to keep what is genuinely useful and true and good, and to gently, without anger, set down the things that were never yours to carry, the beliefs about what you deserve, the limits about what is possible for someone from where you come from, the fears that were handed to you as facts. Those are not your inheritance. Those are their unfinished work, and you do not have to finish it for them. You can put it down and walk in a different direction. I want to talk about the anger piece of this because it is important. For some people, this realization does not arrive as tenderness first. It arrives as anger at the certainty they projected, that some of the things they told you about yourself were their limitation. And feeling angry about that is not wrong, it is honest. It is a legitimate response to recognizing that some of what shaped you was not wisdom, but wound. That you were given a map of the world drawn by people who had never been past the borders of their own experience. That anger is valid, but it cannot be where you stay. Staying in anger is a way of staying connected to the wound. The anger is a door. Walk through it. Do not set up camp in front of it. The destination is the freedom that comes from no longer needing them to have had the answers in order to feel okay. It is the release from the standard of certainty that was never real. It is the permission to be exactly where you are, uncertain, figuring it out, doing your best, without that being evidence of failure, because that is where every person has stood. When you see your parents as people figuring it out, you stop waiting for them to give you the permission or the blueprint. You stop measuring your progress against a standard of adulthood that was never real. You stop feeling like you're failing. And you start operating from the only honest position available. I do not have it all figured out. I'm making the best decisions I can. I will get some things wrong. I will adjust. I will keep going. That is not inadequacy. That is just being alive. And maybe most importantly, you stop being so hard on yourself for not having the answers your parents seem to have, because they did not have them either. They were performing confidence for you the same way you sometimes perform confidence for the people in your life, who are looking to you for certainty. It is what people do for the ones they love. It does not mean the certainty is real. It means the love is. So here's what I want you to do with this, not as a concept, as something real. Think of one thing you have been carrying that you believe came from your parents, but might not actually be yours. One limit, one fear, one belief about what you deserve or what is possible for you. And ask yourself honestly, is this true or is this theirs? Is this wisdom or is this wound? Is this mine to keep or mine to put down? You do not have to resolve all of it at once. Just find one thing and start there. Because the work of separating what you genuinely believe from what you absorbed without choosing is important. And it only becomes available when you see the people who raised you clearly enough to separate their humanity from their authority. They were just people, doing their best, figuring it out, exactly like you. And knowing that, really knowing it, is one of the most quietly powerful things that will ever happen to you. Not because it fixes everything, because it frees you from a standard that was never real and puts the pen back in your hands. Your story is yours to write, not a continuation of theirs. Yours, from here, with everything they gave you that was good, and that without the weight of everything they could not help passing on. That is the gift inside the realization. Go find it. And I want to say something about the relationship you have with your parents right now, because this is about real life between you and them. For a lot of people, there is distance in that relationship, things unsaid, old wounds that have calcified into silence or conflict, or a politeness that keeps everyone at a safe emotional distance from the conversation that actually needs to happen. And I think a lot of that distance is maintained by the unconscious expectation that they should have known better, should have done better, should have been more than what they were capable of being given everything they were carrying. And when you see them as people who were figuring it out, sometimes it creates an opening, a crack in the wall, where a real conversation might be possible. Not a perfect resolution, not the movie version where everything gets said and everyone cries, but a conversation. A moment of genuine contact between two people who are both figuring it out. That possibility is there if you want it. Because the things that go unsaid between parents and children have a way of weighing on both sides for far longer than necessary. And sometimes, all it takes to begin is one person deciding to see the other as human first. Here's the last thing. You're going to be someone's memory of an adult who seemed certain. Whether you have children or anyone who looks to you as someone who has it more together than they do, you are going to be the person they project certainty onto. And you are going to know the whole time that the certainty is not there, that you are figuring it out just like everyone before you. And in that moment, you will understand your parents completely. The love that makes you perform confidence you do not have. The fear that makes you want to protect the people who are watching you. That is the full circle. That is the moment where everything in this video becomes not just an idea, but a lived experience. Be a little more honest than they were. Let the people who look up to you see some of the uncertainty. Because the most powerful thing you can model for someone who is figuring it out is an adult who admits they are figuring it out too. That honesty is the gift your parents may not have been able to give you. You can break that pattern. Start now.